Before we get started, I wanted to recognize some people in the audience, and I could have missed some. Darren Kendall's here, District Director with U.S. Representative Doug Collins' office. Darren, thank you for coming. Judge Jeff Bagley is here. Our DA, Penny Penn, is here. Solicitor General Donna Gopaul is going to be one of our speakers tonight. Major Rick Doyle is here. I don't know where Rick is. Oh, there he is. And he has all the resource officers that work at all of our schools. If y'all will help me thank them for being here tonight. And we are so fortunate that we have a sheriff that sees the importance of putting resource officers in all the schools. And they want to be here tonight in case you've got any questions that you want to talk to them about. They're here to help you, to answer any of those. We also have, and they're going to be explaining this when they get up to speak, but we have different paraphernalia. I went to my Rotary Club today and I said, we're having a drug summit tonight. Y'all need to come and we're going to have drugs there. That wasn't like the way I should have said it. They said, try not to say we're going to have drugs there. But they have brought things so you can actually see how this got started. A good friend of mine, she's here tonight. She was going and has been going through a battle with her own son. And she reached out to me just as I was running for commissioner. And she said, there's nowhere for us to turn. There's nowhere we feel, she said, I have never felt so hopeless. I don't have a place to go for direction. I don't know where to turn. I mean, I don't want to turn to the sheriff's office. I don't want to have him arrested. I don't want to turn to the schools and get him in trouble. And where can I turn? And at that same time, I started serving on social services with the county commission. And we're sitting in a meeting, and Nikki, that's over Community Connections, was there, and we started talking about how we do have such a gap in service, and we don't have a place. And so coming from this, we got the first summit together, and it was so attended so well, and it showed what a demand that there is in this community, that people want to know. They want to help their kids. They want to understand. And we found that it's not that the kids, most kids are very educated. They might not know it the correct way, but they are educated, and the parents are not. And the parents don't know they don't know what to look for. They don't know that residue that's around the computer could be black tar heroin. They never would dream, that their child would dare use needles to inject when it took 4 people to hold them down just to get a vaccine when they were little. And so it's very unsuspecting. And through doing this, I have been so touched by the people that have come to this, that have come up to me and started to share their story. And unfortunately, so many, I lost my child. My son died at this age. My daughter died at this. Or I'm raising my grandchild because of this. And it's not drugs are not a discriminator based upon your socioeconomic or your age. I mean, we've got people that are here, of all different ages, of all different walks of life, that drugs have had such a negative impact. And it's not only taken their family, but it's destroyed their family. It didn't just take a member away. It was like a cancer within itself that eroded their whole home. And that's why we are choosing not to pretend like there's not an issue. We're not doing the Chamber of Commerce. We're the 7th fastest growing county in the nation and 3rd most wealthy and all those things that people are more comfortable talking about. We're wanting to tear down the veil and to remove the curtain and say, we realize that there's an issue and we want to make it better. We want to be the first community in the state that's brought light to this and has tried to do something about it. And I appreciate you. You should be applauded for coming here tonight. Thank you. Also, from our Board of Education, board members Ann Crow, Nancy Roach, and our superintendent, Buster Evans. Did anybody else come in from the school board? Did I miss? And also, I wanted to thank Lanier Tech, Sarah Harrison, Jeff Pruitt, and all that helped set this up and work with us. We are one chaotic group that comes together just right at the last minute, and I appreciate them so much for what they've done. I also want to thank Mr. Seawright back in the back from North Forsyth High School. Yes, that's high school I was LSAC member of 10 years. And I appreciate him coming because so many people didn't get to come to the first summit, but they wanted to watch it on TV or watch it on their computer. And so we'll put links out there again so people can see that. Also, we've done this one a little bit different because we do have exhibits over here, things for you to look at, and we've got all the resource officers for you to talk to. And over in this corner, Daniel Krasner, he was our speaker last time. These are our drug prevention specialists. Is that correct? Treatment providers. And they are everybody that's over there in this corner. After the meeting's over, if you've got questions or concerns that you need to talk to them about where do we go for help, where resources are available, these guys can help you. And then back there, Dallas Gay is also, he has filled a specialty is with prescription drugs and trying to get the word out about prescription drugs. Prescription drugs kills more people than anything. And just to get the word out, because so many people, so many of your children don't start out with heroin. They start out by getting that Oxycontin out of your cabinet. And so that's the message that he's trying to get out. So want to not Terry get started? If you will, come on up, our sheriff's office. We have as our first speakers, Sergeant Richard Thompson and Deputy First Class Tom Little. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Like the Commissioner introduced us, my name is Deputy First Class Tom Little. I'm with the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office. I'm currently assigned to the training section, so I'm a full-time trainer, law enforcement instructor. My background, as it relates to the drugs and the presentation we're going to give you guys, the drugs of Forsyth County, I've been an officer for over 15 years. Almost all of that time I've worked in narcotics interdiction, whether it be in crime suppression units on the street, drug interdiction units, and then also working undercover as a criminal investigator in our narcotics section. Sergeant Thompson, you'd like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Tom. My name is Sergeant Richard Thompson. I'm the training coordinator with the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office. Tom and I feel that we bring something very unique to the table that you won't get anywhere else. What we bring to the table is real boots on the ground experience with people under the influence of whatever you can imagine. My background is in impaired driving enforcement. I specialize in DUI enforcement. A lot of training in that area. I'm a specialized instructor in DUI stuff. What that means for y'all is that the insight that we have that you might not get from an emergency room doctor, we see people that you may bump into at CVS on your way home under the influence of drugs. We want to give you guys the information that you need to pick these people out, especially if these people are in your family. So that's where we're coming from with this, okay? We bring a very specialized skill set to the table, and we are excited to be here. We have a lot of information to give you, so saddle up, buckle up, and get ready for a lot of information.
All right, here we go. The big drug types that we see here in Forsyth County, and in no particular order, we're going to talk about tonight marijuana, methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, prescription pills of a couple of different varieties, spice or synthetic marijuana, cough syrup, alcohol, MDMA, which is also known as ecstasy, inhalants, and Molly. Due to some time restraints, we probably will not make it through cough syrup, alcohol, and inhalants, but we'll put out a few things and be glad to answer questions at the end just to kind of keep it around 30 minutes or so. All right, our first one we're going to talk about is marijuana. Marijuana, obviously known by a lot of different names. For us, certainly the most commonly encountered drug out there. Commissioner pointed out that narcotics span all classes, and we certainly see that as well. Marijuana hasn't changed much over time. It's still consumed through inhalation. There are a number of different ways to do that, and everything from pipes, bowls, bongs, rolling papers, all kinds of different stuff. Now what we've got up here is a couple of different slides. The top left slide I put up there to help dispel some of the misinformation. I know what you may find on your son or daughter's screensaver on their phone or pictures in their notebook or whatever, the 5-pointed leaf marijuana symbol like you see up at the top left is technically not really what they smoke. All right? So that you're not going to come across that 5-pointed leaf in their bedroom other than probably on a sticker or something like that. The actual bud that you see behind it is the part that's actually smoked. So on the top right, we've got a bud placed into a grinder, which is the way that typically most people separate the stems and seeds. So that's an integral piece of gear that a lot of people that smoke marijuana are going to have. And this is kind of the theme that we're going towards with a lot of things we're going to show you is the required parts and pieces. So that you as parents, when you come across this stuff, you'll say, I've seen that before, it's not good, this belongs to something, let me get on the internet and do a little bit more research. So after the marijuana is ground up, it looks like the stuff down there at the bottom left. That's the smokable part of marijuana. It's important because if you look at the bottom right, there's a byproduct that's not smoked, and it has to be disposed of. We come across it a lot. It has to be thrown out in the trash. It gets thrown out in the yard. It's in the bottom of a Dixie cup. It's in an old cigarette pack. It's all over the place. It's stems and seeds. It's around, and it's a great clue. If you think somebody's smoking marijuana, there will be trail. We have a couple of different field expedient pipes. Not all pipes for marijuana are bought in stores. A lot of the people who first start using marijuana start off in middle school, high school. They may not have access to a car. They may not have access to cash. They may not have these things. And so all they got to do is get on the internet and say, how do I make a marijuana pipe? And it covers everything here from, this one on the top is actually a soda can. We've got demonstrators over here. Top right is a water bong out of a water bottle. How about a Nintendo 64 controller? And in the bottom right, an Apple pipe. And we've got a couple of those manufactured over here for your viewing pleasure as well. This is kind of shows a couple different things. Another common consumption method for marijuana. The top right is a cigar blunt. That's what you're seeing in the top left, a new cigar. It gets cut open with a cigar or cut open with a razor blade. The tobacco contents are emptied and filled back with marijuana. To close that hole up is where you get those blunt wrappers. You see these in a lot of gas stations around our county. They're technically not illegal to sell because you can use them to put tobacco into. However, it's very common within the marijuana community. Visine, we'll talk about how that ties in with physical manifestations, but obviously Visine is an important clue for somebody who may be trying to hide their use of marijuana.
Before we talk about physical manifestation, let me throw a quick disclaimer out there. If we use humor in this presentation, understand that it's humor used as a teaching tool. We are not making light of anyone's current drug use situation or proposed drug use situation, but having said what you're saying, and listening to people up here on the stage talk, we get that humor sometimes may be a good teaching tool, so that's kind of a quick disclaimer.
Sorry.
Bloodshot eyes, very, very predominant with marijuana smokers. Now, we're not saying if you have bloodshot eyes, we're going to accuse you of being a pot smoker or not. That's not what we're saying. You may be if you are to it to yourself. However, very, very predominant with marijuana use. In fact, that's why part of the reason why there's a big push for medicinal marijuana. It can be used to treat glaucoma. So understand that bloodshot eyes, very, very commonly associated with marijuana. Increased appetite. We refer to that as the munchies. And those of you that have teenage kids like I do, we understand that they're pretty much walking, talking, eating machines. If it's not nailed down, they'll eat. What we're looking for here, when we talk about bloodshot eyes and increased appetite, is changes in behavior that you have to be aware of. You've got to pay attention. You've got to pick up on these indicators. Eyelid tremors, if you suspect your spouse or whoever is smoking marijuana, under the influence of it, if you simply have them close their eyes, tilt their head back, can we agree that their eyelids should remain closed and still? Nothing dramatic about that. Someone high on marijuana, typically their eyelids will bounce uncontrollably. And it may be as easy as, see how red that person's eyes are? See the green coating on the tongue? Roadside, we've had deputies make the statement, dude, you're making this way too easy. They're giving it to us, folks. They're telling you they're using drugs. We have to pay attention. It may be just as simple as noticing bloodshot eyes. Now they have your attention, correct? Keep going with the investigation. Look through their stuff. Ask them some questions, okay? These are good indicators to pick up on.
All right, next drug type. Methamphetamine is our next drug type. It comes by a lot of different names. Ice, meth, there's a bunch of them you can read up there. Primarily, methods of consumption are a little bit more diverse on this one. We see primarily With newer users, it's going to be more of smoking, a veteran user, more injection with vein, and then there is some snorting and stuff like that, and eating. However, it's primarily smoked or injected, especially here in Forsyth County. One of the things that I'll put out there for methamphetamine is it is probably the longest lasting duration drug of any of the drugs we'll talk about today. High-wise, it can be super intense for, depending on your tolerance, from anywhere from 2 to 6 hours, but the lasting effects can go more than 24 hours off of a single dose. And so for that purpose alone, a lot of people tend to stay on it because they have that excited hyperactivity and stuff. Up at the very top, we call this Faces of Meth. That is a 10-year cycle taken out of booking photos by this young lady who's addicted to methamphetamine. What you're seeing on the bottom left is a methamphetamine pipe we call chalet. It's got a spear on one end, and it is unique to methamphetamine smoking. They don't use it for crack or marijuana or anything else. You see this pipe, it is tied only to that drug. This one is dirty, which means that this one has actually been smoked, and it's got different colored smoky residue throughout it, consistent with methamphetamine. On the right-hand side is typical crystalline methamphetamine, and methamphetamine technically is kind of a salt, and so that's why it kind of looks crystalline like that. The top left and the bottom left are traditional methamphetamine pictures. We see the bottom kind of being more of a user level, somebody who's going to pay in the range of $50 to $100 for a little bit of methamphetamine to get them through a day or two. On the top, you're talking about somebody who could last off a week or something like that, but we're still not talking about a great deal. That could also be potentially, honestly, we're talking at the top one, for somebody who would pick that up to sell to other people. That can be a distribution level, absolutely all day long. Now we had a little breakout probably about 2 years ago where we had a scary setup where we got the bulletins about a pink meth that was coming out. It had a street name of Strawberry Quick, and we didn't know if we'd see it in our area, and we did, and we got it. And this stuff on the bottom right is unfortunately very appealing to a younger audience. It looks like candy, but it's methamphetamine that's been dyed, and is designed, doesn't taste any different or use any differently. It's just a different target audience. Now, on the top right, I've got a drug test kit. One important point I want to bring up to you guys, especially if you're testing your loved one's, son or daughter or something like that, that in this one, this is a typical 5-bank test, and it's got spots on the top for both amphetamine, and then on the right side, methamphetamine, right beside it, MAMP and AMP. It's important to note that methamphetamine and amphetamine will test differently. If somebody is on methamphetamine, it'll flag for both. If somebody is on amphetamines like Adderall or pseudoephedrine, things like that, it may pop for just amphetamine. So understand the lies. People tell you, well, it must be broke, or that can't be true, stuff like that. They're there for a reason. Sometimes you'll get both, sometimes you get one. There's a reason.
Tom makes a good point, and we'll talk about drugs that have other drugs in them. So when we talk about physical manifestations, what you're seeing with ecstasy may look like methamphetamine. But with methamphetamine specifically, very common, dilated pupils. We can agree that during the middle of the day when the sun's out, pupils should be relatively small to block some of that light coming in. Blown out pupils or huge pupils in the middle of the day or in a well-lit room, folks, that is not normal, okay? Pay attention. Grinding teeth. You may actually hear someone under the influence of methamphetamine grinding their teeth. Unpleasant, yes? If you don't hear it, you may notice it by seeing the jaw muscle clench. Hyperactivity, very, very common with methamphetamine use. Imagine a car that has the gas to the floor, okay? If you ask this person to sit still, and we've seen this firsthand in a CVS parking lot, ask them to sit still, they can't do it. It's like this. Fist clenched. Eek! No exaggeration. She actually made that sound in an attempt to stay still. Again, car in neutral, gas to the floor. That's what's going on in these people's bodies. Not sleeping, again, very common methamphetamine use. You may see someone that has mowed the lawn 4 times in one day. They have that much energy. Irritable, cranky, paranoia. They can be paranoid about almost anything. Paranoid about what you know, what you're about to find out. Paranoid about the cops coming. Paranoia, again, very common with methamphetamine.
Richard, and one other one that we always talk about is appetite suppression. When you combine appetite suppression, reduced caloric intake with hyperactivity and lots of movement and never stopping, you get rapid weight loss. At least in the first couple of months or year, somebody using methamphetamine will have significant weight loss, as well as sometimes sores on a lot of exposed skin, face, hands, arms, things like that.
I want to make one more point. In regards to grinding teeth, if someone chooses to eat methamphetamine, oddly enough, methamphetamine has not been approved by the American Dental Association. Understand? This stuff is not good for your teeth. You should be aware of that though, because if your loved one's teeth all of a sudden just go downhill, that does not happen normally. Agree? You should be on the lookout for that.
All right, cocaine. Cocaine is not a drug we see as much here in Forsyth County right now in 2014. However, we do get it on a semi-decent basis, but it's not our epidemic per se. Cocaine is pretty much seen in two forms: powdered cocaine and then crack, or they call rock cocaine. Methods of consumption, pretty much rock cocaine is smoked and powder cocaine is snorted. There are other ways to do it, but those are the two biggies. The top left, we're looking at crack cocaine. That's a couple of rocks. It can be dry and waxy. It can look like a shriveled up old French fry tip. It looks like a couple of different things, but you can usually flake it off and kind of chop it off with your fingernail. It kind of comes off, it's a little bit waxy. Cocaine down in the bottom left, powdery forms, kind of like flour. It doesn't have a lot of sheen to it. It can be hard as well if it's come off of a brick or a bigger piece and not necessarily be crack. Now on the right-hand side, we've got crack pipes in two different forms. On the top right is the way you buy it from the gas station, as with a small rose for your loved one. That's the way they sell them at the counter, right? It's a little glass tube with a little fake rose and a wire in it. Behind it is some chore boy, which is copper Brillo. Those two items together, the Brillo becomes the filter, they stick it inside, and at the bottom what you have is a dirty crack pipe. Once the crack has been smoked, the copper is the filter, and that's what you get. Richard, do you want to tell them about physical manifestations on cocaine?
Since cocaine and methamphetamine are both stimulant drugs, the way these people act when they're under the influence of it will be very, very similar. Cocaine is typically snorted, except for crack cocaine is smoked. So if you're having a conversation with someone and their nose has the appearance of someone that's been sanding sheetrock all day, all right, that is not normal. And we kind of make a joke about that, but honestly, I'm telling you, they're giving us these indicators, okay? Obviously, y'all care or you wouldn't be here. All we're going to do is give you more tools, and it may be just as obvious as seeing a huge ring of a white powdered substance in someone's nose. It could be that easy. Not all the time, but it certainly could be.
All right, now certainly one of the big reasons a lot of people probably came here today is to find out more about heroin and how it became such an epidemic. It comes by a lot of different names. We'll look at a couple of pictures of it a little bit, but heroin is kind of like methamphetamine. It's ingested in several different ways. It can be smoked, but primarily it is injected and it is snorted. So snorted, smoked, and injected. We see almost exclusively around here injection. Now, what you're looking at here is the contents of a recent overdose victim's purse. Kind of sad to say that those are the contents, but it's true. When we're trying to figure out what the cause of the overdose is, we'll do whatever it takes to find out. So, emptying a purse out is a good clue, and it has a good couple of indicators. And I love this picture because for you, it should be empowering. Okay, inside of this, there are some obvious things. We've got the green bag in the middle is heroin. It's got that tannish powder inside of it. It kind of looks like cocoa. It's very thin. It can be a little bit more like a rock sometimes. It can be harder. It means it has to be chopped up before it's done. We've got a couple of different syringes. We've got a razor blade there, a little folding knife. But most importantly in here, we've got a white band over here on the left. That's a very small women's belt. Okay, what is it? It's an improvised tie-off, right? The other thing a lot of people don't think about, much like a rubber band or something you would tie off with, a bra strap by itself, an improvised tie-off. These are in her purse ready to go. Now, on the night table was the spoon, a bottle of water, some of the other pieces of cotton and things like that. But all together in here, these are things we need to be looking for when we're looking for heroin, especially for somebody who's injecting. Okay? This little girl lived. So for most people that are going to inject the heroin, you saw the heroin in the little baggie back there. You see the pictures on the bottom, it actually shows heroin can come in different colors. So not necessarily, you could have something that looks like cocaine, but actually be heroin, whiter on the bottom. But ultimately, they're trying to get it into a spoon or something else. A spoon is usually the easiest because they have to have some way to put flame underneath it. They dilute it with water, mix it down, usually with the tip of the needle, and then they heat it up to a rapid boil, and then they're going to inject it up into the needle and then inject it into a vein. Physical manifestations.
With heroin, this is one of the scary ones. When I say scary ones, we all know that all the drugs are scary. We understand that. But with heroin is what we're seeing a marked increase in this county right now, and opiate use, trying to get off the heroin stuff. The concerning thing about heroin users is once they become dependent upon the drug, okay, they can't be without it. This isn't a mental thing. It is a physical addiction that they have to address. So to maintain their state of normal for them, it takes heroin to do that. That's important for y'all to know because a tolerant heroin user, you probably won't be able to pick them out. They won't be asleep sitting up. They won't have a bunch of slurred speech. In other words, for them to maintain normal, they have to have heroin to maintain that. Now, one very reliable indicator of opiate use, including heroin, is constricted pupils. This is the only of the drug category that causes the pupils to become smaller, okay? So in the middle of the night, with very little light in the room, we can agree pupils would probably be a little bit bigger than usual. Pinpoint pupils at nighttime, folks, that's not normal, all right? Droopy eyelids, it's not uncommon to see someone that's really high on heroin to actually fall asleep standing up. We've had them snoring on the side of the road, standing feet together, hands down by their side, mid-conversation, and they're snoring, okay? They can be conversational. You ask them a question, they're tracking right with you. So droopy eyelids, very, very common. Track marks. Folks, it isn't just on the arms anymore, okay? Typically, we used to see track marks only on the forearm area, not anymore. Business people, high-power business people that wear short sleeves to work, they can't have track marks showing on their arms. So anywhere you can tap a vein with a needle, that's where you should check for track marks.
I agree. I'm going to give you a quick little education, because a lot of people don't know. Why do so many people overdose on heroin? Why is it heroin as opposed to any of these other drugs? How is it so easy to screw up? And it's all about dosing, okay? And the way dosing works and how people screw it up with heroin is most people get into opiates through pills. It's a very metered and precise drug process. You may start off using half a pill at a time, maybe a quarter pill at a time, maybe a third of a pill at a time, until you can't get high or feel happy or feel normal with less than one pill at a time, or maybe a pill and a half at a time. And it keeps going more and more. Well, people, when you're talking about $1 a milligram per pill and at $30 a pill or $60 a pill for each pill, eventually you're going to run out of money. Because you're going to lose your job, you're going to lose your house, your car, your ability to generate income. And when you can no longer find yourself able to buy those pills, you buy heroin. Because it's the only thing that satisfies. Okay? It's the only thing that satisfies. So heroin, though, is not made by a pharmaceutical company. It is not precise. And if any of you guys came over to my table a little bit earlier, I talked about the fact that pretty much every dealer in the process doubles his profit. So if he buys 5 grams of heroin, he's probably going to add at least 5 grams of filler so that he now has 10 grams to sell. Because they're selfish and they're greedy. And so they take that and they sell a very diluted product. And so for the last year, if your local heroin user has been going down to the same corner stop sign and buying heroin from the same person or group, and they're used to the way that supply chain provides them with heroin, they're used to that particular percentage of heroin in their dosing. So for them, they use a quarter of a gram. Maybe they use a tenth of a gram, a second of a gram. They call them points, okay? 0.1, 0.2. They inject points. So whatever their points is just changes. Now imagine this. Their drug dealer got arrested. They ran out of money and had to go to somebody else. They had to work that day, and when they went to their regular hookup, somebody else wasn't there, and they bought from somebody different. And the supply chain is different. Or maybe their regular old dealer got a new hookup. And the consistency and the purity changes. And so when they go back to their house and they mix up their heroin and they inject that needle full of 2 points or a quarter gram is what they're used to, it's more than a lethal dose. And guys, I've had to work fatalities. I go to these overdoses where people are still sitting there with their phone in their hand and they've just typed in the message, "I just got mine in," and they haven't been able to press send. That's how quick it kills you. I just got mine in. It's not a lot of letters, and they couldn't press send before they died. Okay? So that's how heroin overdose works. And for you guys coming here for down and dirty information, that's how heroin works. All right?
It's probably a good time to make this point, folks. We don't want anything that we say at all to come across as judgmental, condescending, or anything else, because we have people in our family that are addicted to narcotics, okay? So we don't want to say anything condescending. We're not being judgmental. I'll be honest with you. If you're selling heroin to a 14-year-old, you're a scumbag, period. There's no nice way of painting that up. But I'm telling you, if you don't know it already, there is a tolerant narcotic opiate user in your extended family right now. I bet a paycheck on it, okay? So this isn't just in the streets of Atlanta. It is here. It's in your family. It's in my family. We want this information to be nothing but empowering, not judgmental, not condescending. Whatever information we have, you're welcome to.
Yep. All right, so moving on. MDMA. Richard, what does MDMA stand for?
For all you avid Scrabble players, MDMA stands for methylene dioxymethamphetamine. So we talked about before, and I saw some of y'all not interacting with us, does it make sense that someone under the influence of MDMA would show signs of methamphetamine use? It has methamphetamine in it, okay? So stay with us.
All right. So more commonly referred to as ecstasy, okay? MDMA comes in a couple of different forms. It comes in powder form, comes in pre-pressed pill form, comes in the way you may get it from your dealer, maybe in a homemade pressed capsule. I'm going to include Molly in this. Now, Molly sometimes is a pure form of MDMA ecstasy, but not always. We'll talk a little bit about it in a second. However, it's just another street name, but it can be a lot of different things, including MDPV, which is more like bath salts, straight methamphetamine. People that think they're going to a rave and just want to have a good light show and end up taking methamphetamine, probably not exactly the experience they are looking for, but then nothing satisfies. And again, you go searching for that same drug again. These are all actually different types of ecstasy. Even the ones up at the top that look like a traditional elementary school Valentine's Day bag filler. Agreed? And on the top right, those are more traditional ecstasy tablets. People had said before, hey, how do you tell those apart from prescription pills? Prescription pills generally have a more metered number and letter system on them. It's easy to look up on the internet and figure out what that pill is. These don't really try to conceal themselves as a prescription pill. You'll usually have more of a fun and exciting type imprint on them. Now at the bottom is more like Molly. This is Molly in a pressed or powdered ecstasy form. This is very common to find in pills. It's sold, very common to find in clubs, parties, and in schools. It is very inexpensive. People can buy bulk quantities of this and sell these pills for as little as like $4 to $6 a piece. Same with the ecstasy on the top right. Very, very inexpensive to purchase. And unfortunately, there's a big misconception that it's a fairly innocent drug with not a lot of chances of side effect, which is incorrect.
We talked about dilated pupils before. If someone on the front row was under the influence of ecstasy, I could pick them out from this distance because their pupils would be that huge. Very, very predominantly blown out pupils. Look at the dude sunk in the pacifier. I don't know what kind of groups y'all hang out in, but guys I hang out with don't suck pacifier. All right? But we talked about before that methamphetamine can cause you to grind your teeth. Okay? If you're looking for a very pleasurable, laid-back experience on ecstasy and you're grinding the enamel off your teeth, a good way to stop that is to suck a pacifier. That's why they do that, okay? So if you see pacifiers in your teenage daughter or son's room, that should be cause for concern. If you can't see the picture on the left there, huge pupils, very, very predominant with ecstasy use.
Strong hallucinations with this, and this is definitely a hallucinogen that can rear its head later on down the line as well. Now, prescription drugs. We're going to talk about a couple of different categories, primarily opiates like oxycodone, just a different brand name, oxycodone. Those can, interesting, a lot of people don't know, oxy especially is kind of like meth and heroin in that it has so many different consumption styles. Oral, taking the regular pill, not that common for people that are abusing it. They would probably consider that wasting the pill if you took it orally. The only time they'll do that is when they're confronted by law enforcement and then they're just eating it to get rid of it. Typically, oxys are smoked or injected. Anti-anxiety medication like alprazolam, brand name Xanax, extremely common. As a matter of fact, of all deaths in Georgia, the most prevalent drug in the majority of all the deceased is Xanax, more than any other drug, believe it or not. Stimulants like amphetamine salts, also known as Adderall, are extremely common as well. Now, these are a couple of some street slang for pills that I put together that are things you should look out for if you're looking over somebody's text messages, emails, things like that. When they're negotiating, trying to purchase, trying to get a hold of these kinds of pills, they're going to talk about oxys. They'll talk about them by the term usually oxy, 10s, oxycodone, roxys, blues because of the color of the pill. They'll call them again by their milligram terms, 30s and 15s, things like that. We got different ones, tabs, Vicks, bars, Xanny bars, Dex for dextro, amphetamine for the Adderall, Percocet, Perks, things like that. So when they're negotiating these, when they're trying to find out, hey, anybody got a line on any Perks? Hey, I got tab 10s for $10 a piece, and I can get a hold of 20 of them. That's the way that text messages go. That's what you guys need to understand. I know I'm getting ready to jump slides. I see some people writing this stuff down. If you come to us later, I promise I'll give you the information. But these are easy to find on the internet as well. This is a pill, shows a couple of different ways that people are taking oxycodone. Sorry about the microphone. On the top left, we're talking about a needle that I would expunge the substance out of, and you can see the blue liquid. So that's going to be a oxycodone slurry that had been injected or pulled up before it was able to be injected into the person. A lot of times the slurry that's injected or pulled up is going to be the same color as the binder and the shell coating on the outside of the pill. So this is clearly an oxy. On the bottom left, a lot of ladies may recognize that as a pedi file, one that you would use on your feet to knock off the heel calluses and things like that, so your feet are softer, stuff like that. Well, it's probably not that normal to find in somebody's purse that they would take with them out on a date, even less so in a guy's possession. But typically what we'll see is that just a metal piece removed from the handle. And guys, what they're using this for is to shave down the pill like a cheese grater. Okay, you run the pill on that, and a very thrifty oxy user can get 2 to 3 consumptions out of a single pill and make it last a little bit longer. By shaving it down and breaking it apart, you can release some of the time release elements of it and get more immediate effect from the pill. On the right, I know it's a little bit hard to see with the lights in here, but that's a track mark in there. And in a little bit higher def environment, you'd be able to see that there are probably about, I think we counted, about 15 injection sites in that one little spot. You got everything from scarring to black-headed little scabs to fresh injection sites and stuff like that. This is very small. You can see the size of the hair, so the scale is small. One of the things we're looking for. Now on the top left, we're looking at things that you can find around the house, things that you should see in your basement apartment where your teenager lives, whether these things are stuck behind the VCR, on top of the door frame, whatever. This old spoon with a slurry of dried residue around the outside and a cotton in the middle of it is indicative generally of ingesting pills. We're cooking the pill, breaking it down, and then putting the needle into that cotton and drawing up the liquid, using that cotton as a filter. Okay? So that they don't get the binders, they don't get the hard shell pieces from the outside of the pill into the needle and then injected into them. So a lot of this stuff is sloppy and left behind. On the bottom left is a hype kit. This is what somebody that is injecting pills on a regular basis is going to have near them at all times. In their car, in their backpack, in their purse, in their pocket. It's going to have the bare essentials. It'll have a spoon, it'll have a lighter somewhere, it'll have a needle, it'll have some way to generate cotton, which can be something as simple as a cigarette butt. They can tear apart and get the cotton out of it, or it may be cotton balls or Q-tips. And then we've actually got a pill in that same little thing in there. Now, on the bottom right, that's out of a night table stand drawer from somebody's search warrant that I was serving. And in this one right here, you'll see all those. And the nice thing about most all these pictures are local Forsyth County pictures. That bottom right one, that's a lot of different oxys that have been taken over time. Agreed? These are things that if you see this kind of stuff, you should recognize it as for what it is and know that there may be a problem. That kind of stuff isn't normal to see in a trash can, right? It's kind of like stems and seeds. It's a byproduct of the consumption. Top right is foil. A very, very popular way to consume oxycodone and opiate pills in general is to smoke them. Okay? Smoking them has become much more in vogue for these people that are not interested in blasting, meaning shooting up, blasting a pill in front of a girl that they're dating in the middle of the date because that doesn't look cool anymore. But maybe she'd be cool with me if I was just smoking a pill because at least I'm not that low that I'm a needle user. Okay? So we're seeing people that are using tinfoils, and when they're using tinfoil, I've got some examples over here, and if you think this is something that you need to be educated about, come by and take a look at it. They hold that thing at 45-degree angle and actually let the pill run down as they heat it, and then they just breathe the smoke in off of it. So if you find yourself with little pieces of tinfoil with little black tracks on it, look like little slug tracks all over it, but they're hard and crispy little black things, you got somebody that's smoking pills. And it is an extremely fast and rapid way to get the high into your bloodstream without any time release at all.
The manifestations of prescription pill use can vary. What I want you to take from this portion of the presentation is this. If someone you know is exhibiting the signs and indicators of heroin use, you don't find needles, you don't find pots that have been smoked, stay the course, okay? They could very well be getting that same high from prescription pills. If someone you know is acting drunk, but you don't smell any alcohol whatsoever, stay the course. Xanax will make you look and act just like a drunk person, okay? So if the indicators are there, understand that minus the needles, minus the smoking, there is a prescription pill that will give the same results as needle pushing or smoking or burning down, whatever. The pills are out there that cause the same thing, so stay the course.
Big scary thing with the Xanax out there, guys. Remember when people are combining it, self-medicating with alcohol and other depressants especially. That's why we see it present in a lot of deaths, overdose rather, or other medical related deaths. People get to a point where they're completely stupid drunk, fall out, pass out, now they're face down on the bed, and they've taken a couple of Xanax, which is another depressant, and now those two things combined together create an overdose from a drug that you wouldn't normally think you could overdose on, but combined with other depressants, take your life in a heartbeat. Synthetic marijuana is nothing like marijuana, okay? Synthetic marijuana is nothing more than inert organic material. You can buy it by the freaking bushel. You can buy it by a potato sack that will come to your house that weighs 100 pounds, and it is nothing more than potpourri without any odor or smelly stuff on it. Inert organic material. The way they make spice is then they get an ant sprayer, okay? They pump it up with some chemical that they were able to get that somebody swears will get you high if you smoke it, and they spray it onto the inert organic material. It has nothing to do with marijuana. It is not a natural hallucinogen. It is nothing that God created, okay? So Richard's going to talk a little bit about some of the manifestations. Know that it is designed to look like marijuana because it's more acceptable, right? People think they know a lot about marijuana, so if you make a drug that looks like marijuana and you call it synthetic marijuana, it's a little bit more palatable. I will give a big thank you to our commissioners who passed an ordinance that has allowed us in Forsyth County. Right now, you can't buy spice inside of our county. You got to go across to Hall County to buy it. or some other neighboring jurisdiction, you can't get it here. And that's due to not state law, but to a county ordinance. The state passed chemical laws against all of the ones that they've identified, but in our county, we banned all the ones, even the ones that have not been identified.
That's a good point. The manifestations of spies, they're hard to pin down because you're smoking whatever some idiot decided to spray on his bag of crap in the garage, okay? Hate to be blunt, that's what you're doing. So the manifestations are really hard to pin down. What we typically see, though, paranoia, very common, probably the most common one up there on the slide. Bloodshot eyes, maybe not. Pale skin, hallucinations. The hallucinations are typically what the user is looking for, okay? So hallucinations also very common with spy sheets, but understand this can run the gamut of manifestations. Who knows what you're going to see?
All right, guys, that is the end of our presentation. We didn't get real deep into some of the different drugs. We just kind of skimmed the top on all of those. I hope that what you found is useful to you. We're not doing question and answers here just because we've got a lot more speakers. However, know that we're not leaving. We're going to stay up here and man the table. We'll stay here as late as you guys need us. We're not going anywhere until you guys have had all your answers, or all your questions answered. Thank you for having us. Oh, wait. Oh, hold on 1 second. 1 second. Richard was actually given, go ahead and take Richard. That's neat.
The handlets you have on your chair there, get the facts. The first three, they're all interesting bullet points, but the first three are ones that we should really, really be concerned about. The number of calls to 911 regarding possible overdose in 2013 related to the number of actual overdose, we're running about half, okay? So that's an alarming number for us as a county. Overdose being the leading cause of injury of our young people, beating out car accidents, none of us should be okay with that, agreed? Now the rest of those numbers, again, we won't read them out to you and insult your intelligence, you have them there in front of you, but those are some alarming numbers that at least one of them on that page should shock your conscience, okay? So again, we appreciate you guys being here. It certainly shows an effort on your part to, one, care, and two, to do something about it. So we appreciate your attendance.
Thank you. That was some great information. I want to ask everyone that serves on this, we've named our group Forsyth County Drug Awareness Council. And everyone that serves on this drug council with me, if you will, please stand or wave or something. There's from the school system, through judicial, through our county sheriff's office, community connections. Thank you all so much. They work really hard in trying to put this together. Our next presenter is Solicitor General Donna Gopaul.
Good evening. Does everybody have a cell phone? Smartphone? Why don't you pull that out for me? This is going to be an interactive presentation. As you can see, I am the Solicitor General. I'm in charge of prosecuting all the misdemeanor crimes of Forsyth County, DUI alcohol, DUI drugs, possession of marijuana less than an ounce, and traffic tickets, among a few. Raise your hand here if you have a Facebook account. Does almost everybody? Twitter account? Raise your hand if you have a Twitter account. So a little less. Instagram? Instagram's more common. Who instant messages? Okay. Parents, raise your hand if you have a Facebook account. Okay. My presentation is specifically about social media sites. We have quite a few young folks putting up on Facebook pictures of heroin and marijuana and things like that that they're using that the deputies just went through with us. So what I want you to do is, who here knows how to take a picture on their smartphone? Does everybody here know how to do it? Who doesn't know how to do it? Well, that's okay. We're going to learn how to do it tonight. So if you have a phone, pull it out. And the iPhone, you just press the main menu button in the menu at the top to take a picture of your whatever's on the screen. And then if you have a Droid, I don't have a Droid, I'm told you just swipe across, is that right, to take a picture on your phone? So what I wanted to talk about was, if you don't have a Facebook profile and you suspect your children are using Facebook or Twitter or Instagram to post about drugs or alcohol that they may be consuming, you need to be able to take a picture of that on your phone, because most everyone here can get on Facebook on their phone, correct? And you can take that to someone, a school resource officer, one of our fabulous school resource officers here on the back, or a school counselor to find out exactly what that is if you didn't cover it in the presentation today. So a lot of young folks are using Facebook to do that, and they post what they've been doing and where they've been going. So it's very important that you are friends with your child on Facebook. Is everyone here friends with their child on Facebook? Okay, so there's a common study that I was able to pull research from. It was done by the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse at Columbia University, and it's called the National Survey of American Attitudes on Teen Substance Abuse. And the study noted that 75% of teens say seeing pictures of kids on Facebook using drugs and alcohol encourages other teens to use drugs or alcohol. So another thing that the study found was parents were actually, something that worked was getting their kids' passwords to their accounts. Who here has their kids' passwords to their accounts? That's great. You should get those passwords. And they were able to monitor that and sit down and talk with their kids about what they were seeing on other people's profiles and addressing that behavior by doing that. The study went on further to talk about, compared to teens who had never seen pictures on Facebook of kids using drugs, teens who had seen such pictures are 4 times likelier to have used marijuana, 3 times likelier to use alcohol, and almost 3 times likelier to use tobacco. So it's very important that you have this discussion with your children and look at what they're posting on Facebook and look at what they're posting on Instagram. Another tool that came up was this book that was published by Dr. Megan Moreno, and it's Sex, Drugs, and Facebook, A Parent's Toolkit for Promoting Healthy Internet Use. Her research showed that many parents have all the password to their kids' emails, computers, and Facebook, and that's able to help them monitor which friends are a bad influence. And this helps you start the conversation with your children, so that's very important. You have to learn what your children are viewing on social network sites, and if your children are seeing pictures of other teens, they're more likely to use drugs or try, and you as parents are powerful influence on these children. So let your teen take the lead as the teen expert on Facebook, and you take the lead on safety. So in closing, you can control what your kids are seeing on social media websites like Facebook and Twitter, and that helps start this whole conversation that you may be uncomfortable starting with your kids. So if you have any other questions, I do have the study, and I'll be in the back if you have any other questions to talk about children looking at seeing these pictures of other children using on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram.
Thank you so much. I've been amazed to hear of court cases that actually have used Facebook and pictures that they are showing and even marketing their drugs in that area, through those means. Our next speaker is Cassandra Price, and Kevin Tanner, our representative, and he has a representative here tonight, Eric Bennett. But Kevin asked Ms. Price to come tonight. She is with the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Development Disabilities Division of Addictive Diseases. And she's going to share with us things to do with addictive behavior and things to watch for.
How are you guys doing? So I have a confession to make. How many of you here watch House of Cards? Okay, a couple people. You might get my joke. So if I go into a southern drawl from South Carolina, I've been watching House of Cards. And so I am from the South, but a lot of what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to go through really quickly to keep us at time, and has been mentioned a lot by the officers, and kind of reflect back on that. But I want to give you a website, and this website is done by the Partnership for Drugfree.org, and it's called timetoact.drugfree.org/think. Well, and I can give this to you later if I put it up somewhere. But if you put in timetoact.drugfree.org, you'll find this information. And on this website, It has signs, symptoms, it has videos, how to talk to your kids, it has blogs, it has treatment resources, it has anything a parent could ever want to research and look at a site that has just a lot of information. So I want you to have that, because I'm going to blow through a lot of this really quickly. So, and there's a lot of kids in the room. I'm very curious if you'll come tell me after you're done if you think a lot of what we said tonight here is lame. Or are we on point? Or, because you know, sometimes we think as adults that we kind of know what's going on with kids and youth and what we think is kind of best practice, but then there's this kind of a uncharted territory once we're no longer youth ourselves. So I'm always wondering if kids are, well, she's so lame. But so I think if you think your child, I think my child is using, that's kind of the title of the first section of this talk, and it says, your first step, ask them. They may deny it, they may get mad, they may look at you like you have 3 heads, but studies have shown that that is the best first approach, to ask them, are you using? It's pretty common sense, but parents sometimes have a lot of anxiety about making that first approach. And on this site, it does have some ways and some techniques to do that. Signs and symptoms, the officers talked about a lot of them, but I'll go through some. Behavioral issues, so changes in relationships with family members and friends. Yes, teenagers can be sullen sometimes and get isolated, but if that behavior becomes much more advanced than the norm, loss of inhibitions, mood changes, laughing at nothing, clumsy, sullen, tired, uncommunicative, you know, you're thinking, okay, my kid didn't talk to me anytime. Are they on drugs? Not necessarily. But it's really kind of getting a baseline of what your child does, and hostile and angry are some of the things. Deceitful, secretive, beyond normal teenage secretiveness, hyperactive, some of the things they mentioned. Physical appearance, messy, careless appearance. Now, teenagers are messy. I grew up in the 90s and 80s when the grunge thing, we were messy. But I think it's kind of looking at, again, a baseline of what your child looks like now and then potentially how that progresses. Poor hygiene, track marks, burns or soots on their finger, red and flushed cheeks on the face. Personal habits, start smelling smoke, ding, ding, ding. They're doing something related to smoke. Chewing gum or mints to cover up their breath. Heavy use of over-the-counter eye drops, breath and mints. Breaking curfew, beyond the normal teenage breaking curfew. Munchies, maybe you talked about teenagers eat everything in sight, but is it, at certain times, does it seem to be fluctuating from their norm? Home or car-related issues. So disappearance of prescription and over-the-counter pills. If you start noticing your medications are missing, first of all, lock your stuff up. I probably would have said a cuss word there, but I'm trying to keep it clean. Lock it up, guys, because I'm going to tell you where teens and youth get their prescription medication and over-counter medication to abuse is us and their neighbors and their grandparents. So lock it up and not make it accessible. Missing alcohol and cigarettes, monies, valuables, things that are just come up missing, and then you guys mentioned about wrappers and drug apparatus and toilet paper rolls and hidden stashes of things that you might not be able to identify, but you know is not a normal thing that should be in a room. Health issues, frequent nosebleeds, obviously from snorting something, runny nose, sickness, sores, nauseous, seizures. They never had a seizure before, never been diagnosed with a seizure disorder. Might be an indicator something's going on. Vomiting and wetting their lips, excessive thirst and cotton mouth. Dramatic weight loss, gain, accidents, injuries, depression, headaches. So those are the things, that some of the physical things, and I'm blowing through. There's a ton more that's on this website. These are just a few things to look for. See, they're looking at me going, lame. School or work-related problems or issues. Truancy, drop in grades, loss of interest, failure to do responsibilities at work or school, complaints from coworkers or teachers, intoxication. So those are just those are really high level, very quick, and I really encourage you to go to the site because it is an amazing site. I think another thing that's important is to know the risk factors. And this is kind of the hard conversation of knowing if your child has risk factors that makes them more susceptible to abusing or possible addiction. So for an individual that begin drinking at a very early age, 10 to 12 years old, if they're trying drugs at an earlier age, that risk factor for becoming addicted becomes very, very great. Thinking that drugs and alcohol and drug use isn't harmful. It's called perception of harm, what we call it in the prevention world. So my biggest concern is the perception of harm in marijuana. You know, we got states legalizing marijuana, and I'm not getting into any political discussions, but I think that perception of harm has gone down so much now that marijuana is not seen as harmful. So it's very important as a parent, as a community person, that you set the boundaries of what the perception of harm needs to be for your child and what you feel is important. ADHD, that's definitely a risk factor. Abusing of those kind of medications, and just the self-medicating of those behaviors is something to be aware of. Not all kids with ADHD are going to become addicts. So let me just say that. I'm not saying that. It's just a risk factor, something for you to be fully aware of. Mental health disorders, depression, anxiety, conduct disorders. A lot of times a child's experiencing those issues, or a youth is experiencing those issues, and they don't know how to handle it. And so guess what? Alcohol, prescription drugs, helps them feel better. It takes away the pain of what those mental health disorders are bringing forth. So it's really important to pay attention to kind of the warning signs for depression and the warning signs for anxiety, and being aware of those things so that your child can get treatment for those if that's an issue. And that's a whole lot easier to treat if you catch it early and deal with it than having to treat that and an addiction on top of it. Rebelliousness, I can never say this, they're rebellious. So breaking of rules, I know that no teenagers do that, but I think it again is about the baseline. I got 5 minutes. Unable to control impulses. Another risk factor is their peer, friends that are using alcohol and drugs, friends that are posting on Facebook, throwing up gang signs, blunts, that's not good. Gang involvement, and then family. I want to make sure I mention this in my 5 minutes. Family history of addiction. And we don't want to talk about that because we sometimes have this kind of feeling of blame or guilt or responsibility, but as a family system, we have to own if addiction's a part of our family, and we have to address it head on and speak to our youth and our teens about that family history and be honest about that risk factor. Trauma, and that can include divorce, death of a family member, child abuse, neglect, no parental supervision or monitoring, and lack of expectations of a child. If you have very low expectations of your child and no clear boundaries, sometimes that's a huge risk factor. And inconsistent and severe punishment. School, of course, academic difficulties. Child struggling in elementary school, a lot of times trying to fit in. That's an issue, and that's a big risk factor for using and abusing drugs. Learning disabilities, again, trying to kind of compensate and feel better. Community, easy access to alcohol and drugs in the community, big risk factor. And we know about access is pretty, I could probably go through here and find somebody to get me something right now. Like everybody's looking around. But it's that accessible. I think that's what's really scary. Poverty and the media glamorizing alcohol and drugs and making it that perception of harm, again, being low. And so this next part is kind of like, why do teens use? I've touched on a lot of that about fitting in, transitions, sex. Guess what? They get cars. Cars are a big part of it. Cars and access and freedom. But the last part, probably got like 2 minutes left, but this part is, I know my child is using, what do I do? You know your child, you got the evidence, you know what they're doing. First, take a breath. And then there's some things you can do. Agree as a family, spouse, family members, how are you going to approach this? What is our end goal? Be prepared to be called a hypocrite, because kids will do that to you in a heartbeat. Gather your evidence, expect denial and anger, set an expected outcome, spell out the rules and consequences, and remind your teen of your support. And that's a lot of information, some of which I'm sure the teens think is lame. And it's not an easy thing. My disclaimer to everything I've said is all of this is great information, and I think it works in a lot of cases, but there is no magic bullet, there's no magic formula on how to address addiction or use and abuse with teens or adults, that it really is about the family and the child, and what may work for one family may not work for another. The one thing I will say is I'm going to leave you with a hopeful note. In America, there are over 20 million people in this country who are in long-term recovery from addiction. So even if someone, we're talking a lot about prevention and stopping it, absolutely, but when people do cross into a life of addiction, there is hope. People do recover. And I just want to leave you with that, because I believe recovery is powerful. And 20 plus million Americans in this country also believe recovery is possible. So thank you so much.
Okay, our last speaker this evening is Ryan Stringfield. Ryan is the Executive Director of Pathways to Life, and he's going to be speaking to us. And then I also wanted to mention that these folks will still be around when this is over, so you can talk to them and ask questions, because we talked about it, and we think that a lot of your questions might be personal questions that you might not feel comfortable in a big crowd, and it would be better to be one-on-one. Ryan?
Yep. Hey, y'all. Welcome. It's good to be here tonight to share with you. I'm actually one of those 20 million people in recovery, and well, thank you. Well, I'm going to refer really briefly through a series of slides to just kind of give you guys some insight into the problem. CASA, I'm going to refer to CASA. They do some amazing research. That's Columbia University. You might want to check out that website. There's tons of videos. There's tons of resources for parents. And this is where I pulled a lot of my research and statistics that I'm going to show you. But a recent study done by them shows that the #1 health problem in America is actually teen drug and alcohol use. Keyword use is not abuse. A lot of times people think it's only for people that are abusing, but what we're finding is in the teen population that is just using that makes them vulnerable to the risk. And I'm going to unpack that a little later. Okay, 40 million Americans, 1 out of 7 deal with an addiction. They have the disease of addiction. And here's the kicker behind that. This research that they did actually discovered that there was 80 million high-risk people using that were abusing, right? So there's a lot of people using alcohol and drugs in our country, okay? And out of, this is more than people that actually have heart disease or have cancer or have diabetes. So this is really important information for us to know, because if you'll notice, there's a common thread in these 3 situations here. They're diseases. And if we don't see the problem correctly, we're always going to use the wrong approach in how we try to treat it. So I'm interested, by the show of hands, how many people here actually have been affected by the disease of addiction? Maybe even personally or somebody in their family. I think it's clear that we have situations going on in our country that needs to be addressed. All right, so 1 out of 10 people who need treatment actually are getting care. This says a lot about the screening processes. It says a lot about the negative stigma that often goes around with people that are using. And I think it's directly connected to the fact that people think that it's, they don't view it as a disease, and so they're not treating it properly. So these people, there's tons of people out there suffering that need help. 9 out of 10 of the people with an addiction actually started before the age of 18. 9 out of 10 of those 40 million people. And they use the number of people that are in treatment to actually measure, but what they do is they look at the numbers of people in treatment, and then they project outwardly. So this shows us a lot about the origin of our problem, this disease called addiction, and it's really directed to adolescent use. Let's take a little bit closer look at this. What does this reveal about teen drug abuse? You know that the flyer that you guys got, it said 4 out of 5 teens are going to use alcohol and drugs. 75% of high school students have used addictive drug substances. 46% of them they use on a regular basis, and 12% reach the medical criteria for addiction. This is a big deal. These numbers are clear that we're facing a crisis of epidemic proportion in our country that demands action. And you can tell by the statistics that it's not just our country, but it's Forsyth County that's being affected by this. And so a crisis for me, this is actually the Asian symbol for crisis. And for me, what it means is this is what those symbols mean. It means that there's danger and opportunity. Crisis is the place where danger and opportunity meet. So what we can do is we can continue to sit idly by, or we can take a stand to fight for our youth, families, and community, and even our country. I personally believe that this problem is directly connected to the perception of harm or perception of risk. Over the years, as there's been big prevention efforts. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and the prevention efforts were, with Nancy Reagan and all those campaigns, and I don't necessarily would say that they were all that effective for me personally, but the research shows that when there was a lot of efforts in prevention, that the amount of use went down. And so the statistics right now show us that there's a huge increase in the amount of kids that are using. And so we know that the perception of harm, the perception of risk is way down. Now, you heard from the young lady who shared about the media, the effect of media, social media, music, films, all these things that the kids are now getting so many different messages. And I think these mixed messages are beginning to shape their view in a way that causes them to approach these things like they're no big deal. And so they're using information that's not sound and that's really can be very harmful for them as they begin to think about drugs and alcohol. So if we really want to address this appropriately, we need a new lens. We need to see this problem correctly so that we can address it effectively. And kids need to see and understand how it's happening and what makes it happen and how does it come to play and come about in people's lives so that they're able to protect themselves. So we need a new lens. Like I said, if we don't see it correctly, then all of our efforts to address it will be ineffective. So the most important thing that we need to realize and really need to get and take this into consideration and embrace this is that addiction is a disease. That's right, addiction is a disease. And here's the thing, it affects the brain. It affects the structure and the function of the brain, and it can lead to compulsive use and a lot of negative outcomes and even health problems, but also fatality. We're losing teens left and right. You saw that 19 young adults. These are young adults that we're losing in our communities. And that's not just here in Forsyth. That's not to throw a rock here. I work in the North Fulton community, the same problem there. You got the same problems in Fayette County. You got it all over it's happening. So addiction is a complex condition like other major diseases, and it can be prevented and treated and managed by medical and other health professionals. Like Cassandra said, there is no silver bullet, but the best thing for us to do is when we start to see these signs is to move into action and get them into screening tools and get them into processes that can help them assess where they're at and really try to address these issues before the high-risk use gets out of control. So like all other diseases, we must seek to understand what are the risk factors that I need to be aware of as if we really want to avoid this in our life. So let's look at a formula that I believe that we commonly use for all major diseases. And that is, we got our lifestyle choices. Our biology, our genetics. This is our family history. There's several risk factors that come into play with this. We got our family history. A person with alcoholism and addiction in their family, they are 4 times at increased biological risk. So that's before they ever take any drugs. If you have it in your family history, you have an increased biological risk by 4 times. You remember the previous number that I said that 9 out of 10, 90% of people addicted started smoking, drinking, or using under the age of 18. This reveals, I believe, another key risk factor, which is the age and stage of first use. There's some research done by a lot of different organizations. One of them, the National Council on Alcohol and Drug Dependence, it reveals that 47% of teens that use alcohol or drugs will develop a dependence at some point in their life. That's almost 50%. So this is one of the key things. One of our goals through our prevention efforts, if we educate people correctly around this, what we want to do is we want them to push their first use back of alcohol or anything past their 21st birthday. If we do that, the statistics show that they go from 50% chance of becoming addicted, or maybe not, it's like 50-50, going into a place where they're 1 out of 25. And so their chances of ever becoming addicted are very slim at that point. That doesn't mean that if you start drinking alcohol and using drugs after the age of 21 that there is no risk, but the risk goes down. And I believe that's directly connected, and so does CASA, to the, I'm a little behind on my slides there, to the adolescent brain. I don't know if you realize this, but the adolescent brain, 50% to 75% of this is genetics. The rest of it is our lifestyle choices. So why is the adolescent brain period so critical, this adolescent period? Their brains aren't fully developed, and they're not connected. Have you ever looked at your son or daughter and you looked at them and you'd be like, what were you thinking when you did that? They weren't, because in a lot of ways their brains haven't fully developed, so that prefrontal cortex, that part of their brain that helps them make wise decisions and helps them problem solve and think abstractly, is not fully developed. So a lot of times they're making decisions based on impulse and based on information that they don't really have. I wonder if this comes out. Oh my gosh, that's so much easier. All right, addictive substances also have a greater chance for negative impact on their development process. Some of the other risk factors include family abuse, neglect, or traumatic experiences. I think this is another key factor, and these can be family or socially in context with their environment. But I think also a lot of times youth don't know how to deal with their emotional business. They don't know how to get in touch with what's going on beneath the surface. Heck, adults, we as adults, we don't know how to deal with our emotional business. And so a lot of times they're living out of under-processed emotion, and they're getting connected to these substances that give them relief, and that give us relief, and then we get caught up into this very easily. The last risk factor is types of drugs used. Depending on the different types of drugs used, you heard a lot from what the police officer shared, different substances have different power. As far as you can use high-powered substances like heroin or like cocaine or methamphetamines and be addicted in just one time. One use can put a person past their trigger level. So I've given you a little bit of the research, but what I want to do is I want to kind of take this research and I want to share a little bit of my personal story to kind of show you how this actually fleshes out in real life. All right, so my biological risk factors are this. I had a family history of alcoholism. Both of my grandparents and my dad actually struggled with alcoholism. Not only was there alcoholism, but there was also depression and anxiety. And these are key things. As you know, Cassandra, she brought that up in understanding the signs and symptoms. Sometimes these things come before the substance abuse. Sometimes they come after. Sometimes they come in conjunction. But understanding what your risk factors are key. I had no idea that I had an increased biological risk ×4 before I ever did alcohol or drugs. So that was one of my risk factors. And the other one was my age and stage of first use. My childhood experience was pretty normal. I was super outgoing and adventurous. I love being outdoors. I got involved in sports at a really young age. And because of my personality, I was adventurous and outgoing and gregarious and fun-loving. And I used to think that there was an addictive personality trait. I think that's a myth. And what I found is that there were certain personality traits that I had that would cause me to drift towards high-risk environments. And in particular, in my neighborhood, there was a ton of teenage boys. And so sometimes when teenage boys get together in masses, it's not very good, especially when they're different ages and stages. And in the context of my neighborhood, I started to make some really poor choices and some high-risk choices that would affect the trajectory and future of my life. These same traits that I have that can lead me to go to high-risk environments as a teen can also be channeled as an adult, and they can, give us great reward and success. My first alcohol use went like this. I was hanging out with a group of friends in my neighborhood, and they decided they were going to camp out. There was a house party going on, so the younger kids were like, we'll camp out together so we can go to the house party. My mom, because she knew my personality, she was like, no, that's not a good idea for you. I think we want to have you stay in. I was very upset, ended up sneaking out that night, ended up at that house party. And in the context of that party, there was alcohol there, and I had a couple Budweisers. And I remember having that experience of feeling like I was something. feeling like I was a part of something bigger than myself, connected to an older crowd that I was looking to connect with. The end of that night didn't end up so well. My mother, that spidey intuition that mothers have, my mom found out that I was gone, and so I had to go in and face the music. And even though I got caught the first time, it hurt me deeply to disappoint my mother and to be grounded. The pain of that experience paled in comparison to the other experience that I had. And so even in the face of those negative consequences, it's something I wanted to experience again. Back when I was growing up, they didn't have the screening tools that they have available now, and I think that there are certain things my parents maybe could have done when I had these incidents, but it was the first incident, and I got caught. It wasn't long after that, in 8th grade, the summer of my 8th grade year, I smoked marijuana for the first time, and that once again gave me a connection to that older crowd, and I really liked the effects too. I'm not gonna lie, it was awesome. I thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Over the next couple of years, there was a progression in my use. I learned what friends I could hang out with and where I could spend the night at in order to pursue this party experience. So my using initially kind of went underground in that next season. I drank on the weekends and I smoked marijuana every now and then. But over the next year, I progressed to being a more avid marijuana smoker. A lot of the people that I hung out with in my neighborhood were older. They had more access. They had cars. And so we would smoke marijuana before school, and I would progress to smoking marijuana before school, during school, and after school, and eventually into selling marijuana. Now, this is when I was a sophomore in high school. I started to get some negative outcomes in some of my drinking stuff on the weekend, so I pulled back from that, but blacking out and throwing up, making a fool of myself, and so there was some negative outcomes going on, but I never really connected the fact that I might have a problem. Fast track a little bit in those same environments because marijuana, I wouldn't necessarily call it the gateway drug, but what I would say is that when you smoke marijuana and you hang out with other marijuana smokers, in that environment, you're going to be exposed to more drugs. And that's why there's 10 times greater risk for someone who smokes marijuana, because the likelihood that you're going to be with other addicts that are using other drugs is probably extremely high. And so in that environment, I moved on, expanded my repertoire there, and tried LSD and acid and ecstasy and other drugs as well. I continued to be really involved in school and sports. I was actually a very accomplished wrestler. I was the captain of the wrestling team and county champ several times. And so even though I was using and abusing large amounts, and in a lot of ways I was still succeeding in a lot of the sporting events that I was involved in. The summer of my junior year is when it kind of got a little bit out of hand, but I still didn't connect the outcomes to what was going on in my life. I had a friend of mine that we smoked pot with, a lot of weed with, and he actually ended up committing suicide. He struggled with depression. And we had another group of friends, seniors, an older group of kids, that they left a party one night and they got in an accident, and there was a fatality in the accident. I was also at a party, and my friend's parents were out of town, and then a kid from another school came in, and he was abusing heroin, and he actually died. So we woke up to the morning to shrills. This girl is screaming that her boyfriend is dead. But even with those negative outcomes, because I was having such great success in my sport, it was like, okay, I party, but I don't party like that. My senior year, I had a couple disappointments, and I think in this part of my life is when my using really changed from abuse to dependence. I was dating a girl that I had been dating throughout my high school career, and the fall of that year, we ended up breaking up. And I didn't have the emotional tools to deal with that because, you know, when I started using alcohol and drugs, I stopped dealing with my emotional business, and now when it showed up, I didn't have any tools to deal with it. And so drugs and alcohol became the way that I would deal with anything. I recently heard a guy named Russell Brand. You might have heard of him. He's in recovery, and he said, drugs and alcohol are not my problem. Reality is my problem, and drugs and alcohol are my solution. And at this point, I moved from just abusing and using alcohol and drugs to becoming a solution for me. Fast track, it's my senior year in wrestling. My goal was to win the state title. I made it to the state tournament, and I lost 2 matches in a row. State semifinals, I lost 2 matches, and I didn't even place. Here's another disappointment, a huge letdown. At this point in my life, like I said, I moved to dependence. So I had lost interest. You lose inhibitions. You lose your passions, your dreams, your goals. and I was consumed by the desire to use drugs and sell drugs and that party environment. I turned down the scholarships to wrestle in school. I was having failed relationships with my parents, and this led me to a series of legal consequences. Over the next 7 years, I used and sold drugs. I got arrested for a DUI and spent a night in jail when I was 19. And what I found is that I'd get these legal consequences, and then I'd try to muster up enough strength to say I'm going to do better. And I really desired to make those changes, but after many failed attempts, I would find myself right back into those same patterns, those same relationships, those same tools that I was using. Alcohol and drugs were my solution. I got my first felony possession with intent to distribute marijuana when I was 21 years old. A guy I was selling marijuana to, he set me up, and I ended up getting arrested and getting charged with a felony. Now, I pulled it together for about 6 or 8 months, but like I said, alcohol and drugs was my solution, another failed attempt, and so I continue to use and sell drugs even in the face of these legal consequences. Finally, I ended up in prison. My house was raided in 2001, and I ended up getting sentenced to 5 years in prison. Now, while I was in prison, I had an awakening. My dream and goal as a student was to be a coach and a teacher, not an addict and a felon. And so what it did for me was it made me really think, well, how did this happen in my life? What happened to me? And that really fuels my passion to pursue my own recovery, but also to get educated about what is the nature and the cause of this, and how is this actually taking place in the lives of people. I got lost on my little clicker there. So the question you might be asking yourself is, what can we do? What can the community do? How can we prevent this from happening in our community? And the things that we need to focus on is we need to help the public understand that addiction is a disease. We need to prevent or delay the onset of substance use. That's if we give the accurate perception of risk, what we'll hopefully be able to do is move these young adults to where they're saying, hey, I'm going to protect what I value in my future and put their first use off. Identify teens at risk for substance abuse and do screenings. This is so important. We need diagnostic tools. A lot of the stuff, our naked eye can't detect what's going on beneath the surface. These screening tools are important. Medical professionals, parents, there's screening tools out there. They're all over the internet. There's plenty of clinicians and treatment providers in your area. We got to intervene early with teens that are using to prevent further use and consequences, doing whatever you can to intervene. And then lastly, providing appropriate treatment to teens that are identified with addiction and co-occurring disorders, because this problem can be treated. People can recover and experience a quality of life, and I'm living proof. Thank y'all for letting me share.
No, you're fine. Okay, nobody leaves because we've got door prizes. Nikki is our Vanna White. While she's coming up to do those, we want to thank Lambert High School, Beth Bursama, for putting that together, and for all the kids that helped tonight. If y'all will help me thank them. Children's Healthcare was one of our sponsors that put together the bags. Also, Lanier Forsyth Rotary came through with a check today to help us offset some expenses. Jim and Nick's for the rolls, Eric Bennett for the water, and now for the door prizes. All right, get up there, Donna.
Okay. What want you to do? You want me to draw? We want to thank Jim and Nick's for some gift cards. So we've got 2 gift cards we're going to be doing a drawing for, and then we've got 2 tanning packets that we've also got from Planet Tan. Here's the first one. The first one is Ken Bradford. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Can I see it? No.
Viviana Sykes.
Viviana Sykes. Is Viviana still here?
If she's not.
Oh, there she is. Two more. There you go. Kim Belos. Still here? Yay! DuBois. And Brian DuBois. Still here?
Brian, get you some tanning. Is that it? Is that it? And make sure that we have your email addresses. I know Nikki was getting everybody, so you will be on the list, so we can get in touch with you. We'll have another drug summit probably 6 months from now. Also, make sure you fill out your surveys, because that's exactly the information we've tried to bring to you, was information that you asked for. We will be meeting and putting together this Drug Awareness Council, and come up here and take a look at some of the things that the Sheriff's Office have brought, and be sure to ask your resource officers any questions, or any of the prevention specialists any questions that you might have of them over here. Thank you so much. Prescription drug questions back there in the middle, and thank you so very much for coming.